In this lesson, we are going to discuss about the electrolysis of solution using the reactive and inert electrodes and compare the observations how they both process are different. For example, first of all, we are going to discuss about the electrolysis of copper sulphate aqueous form using the graphite electrodes. Now, graphite electrodes acting as an inert electrodes. So, the ions present in the aqueous copper sulphate are copper ion, sulphate ion SO4 2 minus, and it's in the aqueous form, so there will be H plus and OH minus ions as well. Now copper sulphate, copper ion and the hydrogen ion, they both are the positive ion, so less reactive, will be reacting in the solution. So let's compare the reactivity of hydrogen and copper. We can clearly see copper is less reactive than hydrogen. So in this case, copper will be reacting in the solution. So at cathode, copper will gain electrons from the cathode according to its need. Copper is having 2 plus charge, so it will gain 2 electrons from cathode in order to convert itself into the copper atom. For anode, anode is the positively charged electrode, so there is the sulphate ion and the hydroxide ion present. Now halide ions only will be reacting in the case if they are in the concentrated form. In this example, there are not any halide ion present, so in this case there will be hydroxide reacting. For each hydroxide there will be 4 hydroxide reacting. They will lose altogether 4 electrons in order to convert themselves into the oxygen, and there will be 2 water molecules formed. As mentioned in the previous lecture, this 4 is placed only to balance this equation. You can practice it by putting 3 and 2, it won't be balanced, so that's why we are taking 4 OH minus to balance this complete equation. Now, if you are supposed to predict the products at the each electrodes, so you can mention for the copper that there is the for the cathode there is the copper metal deposited. So for copper metal deposited, we can mention copper metal deposited. It's a predict the products. So for the products, you can mention just the name as well. It will also credit you marks. Like for cathode, we are going to write down copper, and for anode, we are going to write oxygen. Water is also produced, but as it is in the aqueous form, so water will be that present over there. This is the oxygen by which we can clearly observe the effervescence of the oxygen produced from there. If you are asked to explain the observations, so for observation at the electrodes, like we can clearly say for the cathode, there is the copper metal deposited. So pure copper is of the pink color, so we can mention pink color deposited, or pink solid deposited. We can also mention pink solid deposited. For oxygen, you can mention like colorless gas bubbles, effervescence of colorless gas seen, or bubbles of the colorless gases. Now there is one more observation as well, which is important to note for the electrolysis of the copper sulphate using copper electrode. If you see in the solution, like the graphite are made up of carbon, they are the electrodes are inert electrodes, they are the graphite electrodes. So this is the copper ion which is reacting at cathode. Now if we want to see more in detail that from where this copper ion is produced, definitely from this electrolytic solution which is copper sulphate in the aqueous form. Now at the room temperature, copper sulphate, if it is not reacted, it's in blue color. But as soon as the copper ions will be reacting at positive electrodes, the blue color of the solution fades away into the light blue. So this is the one important observation that you should mention in your exam if it is asked, that blue color fades away. Blue color fades away. And it can be applied to all of the electrolytic solutions when they are used using the graphite electrodes, because in graphite electrodes you can mention the general observation for all the reactions that the color fades away for the electrolytic solutions, because electrolytic solutions color are due to the ions present in them. Blue color of copper sulfate is due to the presence of the copper in that solution. What if copper is not present? So definitely the color will be changed, and in this scenario this is all happening. Like copper ions are reacting slowly and gradually, they are consumed from the solution, so that's why there will be color change, that blue color fades away. Secondly, the electrodes are the inert electrodes. They are non-reactive electrodes, so their size remains same. They are not reacting. The size of electrodes, the size of cathode and anode remains same. So this is the all about with the electrolysis of copper sulfate aqueous solution using the graphite electrode. Now let's discuss what if we are using the electrolysis of same compound but we are using copper electrodes. Now the electrodes, positive and the negative electrodes, they are made up of, both are made up of the copper metal. So what happened at anode? Anode is made up of copper. So first of all, the anode will be decomposed, because anode is connected, anode and cathode, they both are connected with a voltage. So anode copper will be decomposed into the copper ion with the loss of electron. So when copper atom from the anode will lose electron, each copper atom will lose 2 electron and form copper ion. So in this way the copper ions are formed at the positive electrode, like CuO2 plus and CuO2 plus, CuO2 plus. These are the copper ions formed at the positive electrode. Now as soon as the ions are forming, they are attracted towards the negative electrode, because they are having the positive sign, so they will be attracted towards the cathode. So after some time, all the positive ions formed at the anode, they are attracted towards the cathode, because cathode will attract them due to the oppositely charged electrode. So at cathode, these positive ions will be assembled over there, CuO2 plus. So this cathode copper ion which is produced from the anode, decomposition of the anode, it will gain electron from the cathode according to its charge. So it will gain that much number of electrons, it will form copper metal. So it's exactly the same point from which where we started at the anode, that it was copper initially, and final point is also the copper. But the thing is that copper is transferred from the anode towards cathode. So we can clearly understand that copper from the anode is continuously transferring its copper ions towards the cathode. So it is deposited at cathode, pink solid is deposited at the cathode. So if you can see, there isn't any role of the electrolyte. The ions are not basically reacting from the electrolyte, the ions are reacting from the electrodes. The electrodes themselves are reacting because they are the reactive electrodes. So if we talk about this copper in the anode, this belongs to copper, it does not belong to electrolyte, sorry. In the same way, this is the copper ion. It's the same ion which was formed due to the decomposition of the anode. So these are the two half-ionic equation for the electrode. Now if you are supposed to write down the observations for the anode, there are the simple copper ions. You could be asked about the observation of the copper, so you can simply mention that there is a pink solid deposited. Pink solid deposited for the anode. The other observation for cathode, which is very important to mention, that the size of cathode increases. Why? Because the copper is deposited all the way from anode towards the cathode, so size of cathode increases and size of anode decreases, because anode is continuously being decomposed in the reaction because of the voltage supply. So size of anode decreases, it is decomposed into the copper ions, and those copper ions are continuously moving towards the cathode. So size of because anode is made up of copper, so that's why it will be decreases. And if we would like to see the electrolyte solution color, so the color of solution stays same. Blue color of solution stays same. So we can mention blue color of electrolyte. Electrolyte stays same. So this is the very important observation, how this color stays same. It is only and only due to the not reacting of the copper ions from the electrolyte, but all the way is reaction from the electrolysis. So this is all about for the electrolysis of the copper sulfate using copper graphite electrodes. It's the inert electrodes. In that case, there will be the major observations will be simply that blue color fades away of the solution, the size of cathode and anode remains same, and there is a pink solid deposited, and color of the gas bubbles. In the same way, there is the major observation for this electrolysis is the blue color of electrolytes stays same. Alright, thank you.